Hi, how are you guys today? I am going to say it again. Looking at your presentations and the work that you're doing on your slides, I love it. I am having so much fun learning about your organisms. The giant water lily, today I was obsessed. Lila, I had to do more research. I loved it so much. So I'm going to add some more information. And again, today you're only going to add one slide, but that one slide might take you a little bit longer than multiple slides because I want you to do more research. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different where I'm going to show you how to do the research a little bit better. I am noticing that some of you just, you struggle with like, what do I click on and how do I know? And that's completely normal in this age of there's so much information. What do I do? So I'm going to walk through how to do some research. Once you get what you want to do, if you're like, oh, I don't want to listen to her anymore, then just hit stop and go start working on your slide. Make sure you add the slides to the post so I can see them. If you are really struggling with your other slides and you need help, please, please, please reach out and ask me. I can set up a private Google Meet with you. I can call you on the telephone. You can call me. It's easier to talk than do it via email, but we can try it via email. I really want you to be successful and to enjoy learning about these organisms. Today's going to be cool, and I'm kind of excited about this information, and it's going to help you for next year, 8th grade, when you study evolution. So ecology is a lot about, how organisms interact with their environments. Now, why are organisms successful or not in environments? And it has to do with this study called physiological ecology, which is kind of a new area of ecology. Like I never knew there was something so specific. And I was just, online searching around different areas of ecology. And this certain branch of ecology is how are organisms physiologically adapted to their environments. Your physiological adaptation is what is it about you? What structures, and by you, I mean your organism. So, like, what does a yeast have that makes it so successful in such a wide range of habitats, as opposed to maybe a tiger? Why are tigers not everywhere around the world? What are their requirements, and how do those body structures and cell structures help them survive in their environment? So what happens when an organism's environment changes? And so here's a couple of good questions. So what are the things about the organism that helps it survive where it lives? And what happens if that environment changes? And we are definitely in this spot in the world. I just got the most recent National Geographic at my dad's house, my parents' house, and this month's issue is all about the major decline in insect populations. And that is because of a changing world, a changing climate, changing environments. And so if your adaptation strategies limit your ability to be in certain environments, then that could cause extinctions. Physiological ecology is the study of these and other questions about the short and long-term behavioral and physiological adjustments organisms make in order to survive and reproduce successfully in their ever-changing environments. So one of the things that we noticed with organisms that had mating behavior is that mating behavior was really important for a female to select a male to fertilize her eggs and pass on the genetics of the population. This is similar as well because what the adaptation, the structures and the behaviors that allow organisms to survive in that environment, we're calling that study physiological ecology. And it's going to become really important in your generation as we move forward, thinking about as we change climates, how is that going to affect? And maybe if we learn these major effects, maybe we can make different decisions. The study of physiological ecology begins with an understanding of the influence of ambient temperatures. The Edpuzzle that you looked at, where it was temperature and the amount of water. Those are the two main factors. So the first study begins with how do we understand how the organism survives in these ambient temperatures? Temperatures is one of the most ecologically significant factors and also one of the most relevant in the face of global climate change. Organisms have evolved a multitude of mechanisms for regulating the temperature of their bodies in order to flourish in their particular environments. A high metabolic rate helps supply heat. So, thinking about if I live in the Arctic or if I live in somewhere where it's generally cold and I have a high metabolism, I'm going to produce a lot of body heat. And that is good for keeping me warm. An efficient circulatory system conducts and distributes heat around the body. Hibernation enables animals to survive long periods of cold. So here's a couple of structures. If I have a circulatory system that travels around and there's open circulatory systems, there's closed circulatory systems, there's organisms without circulatory systems. Plants have a vascular system, which your veins and arteries, that's your vascular system. But for plants, that vascular system is going to be for transporting nutrients and water and sugars. So a lot of organisms have these systems, and the way that those systems are designed enable it to survive in certain environments. Hibernation. That is a strategy. Oh my gosh, you guys, I just remembered it. It just came to me. My dad was watching one of the nature shows on Netflix because I got him to get off Wheel of Fortune. So I was like, Dad, can we just not watch Wheel of Fortune? So we got on Netflix, we were watching a nature show, and it was this frog that every single night would freeze solid. And it had these sugars in its cells that didn't allow the cells to burst when they thawed out. And every single morning when the sun came out, that frog would come back to life. It would literally freeze solid and then thaw out and be able to be a frog. I'll try to find out more information and send it to you because it was awesome. And William, I'm thinking of you because your frog is so cool and I can't wait to learn more. Water availability is another major focus in physiological ecology. We know temperature water. The bodies of all organisms contain water, and organisms in all environments expend energy to maintain their internal pool of water and dissolved substrates. So like in your body, if you sweat too much, you're sweating out salts and sugars. So when I just don't need water. I need things like Gatorade and energy drinks that have a supply of all those electrolytes. Water availability is particularly critical for desert-dwelling organisms. What adaptations do organisms that live in the deserts have that enable them to survive in that ridiculously dry environment? And many ecologists studying the importance of water in biological systems focus their research on desert species. If they can figure out how to live with a lack of water, what structures are their bodies using that we can learn about? For most organisms, life boils down to obtaining the energy and nutrients they need in order to grow and successfully reproduce. That's it. Am I an autotroph? Am I a heterotroph? How do I grow? How do I make more of my species? Meaning of life. You're welcome. So the acquisition of energy is another key focus in physiological ecology. Ecology classify organisms primarily by their trophic feeding strategies. Organisms can access inorganic sources of both carbon and energy are called autotrophs. So if I can get my energy from the sun, that's inorganic or not alive. They're called self-feeders. Heterotrophs, other feeders, are organisms that use organic material produced by other organisms as their source of carbon and energy. So here's what you're going to start with. When you go to Google, you're going to open your Google and you're going to go, I want to know about the mudskipper. That's the organism I study. So I'm going to type in mudskipper. And I know I've picked a specific type of mudskipper, but right now I don't want to get too specific because it's going to take me down a rabbit hole I might not be able to get out. So thinking about if you are doing any sort of mushroom or fungi, search mushroom to start off with to see how far you get. That fish, not the anglerfish. There was one fish that Charlie's studying that you will have a lot of, oh no, maybe it was Evan. You will have a lot of information on that fish. So go ahead and type in that fish common name, and you can start with the common name right now. So you can tell where I'm going, right? Skipper adaptations. What adaptations does the mud skipper have that allows it to survive in its habitat? I'm starting really general and broad. When I click that, I come up with some images and some information, and I read it to kind of get a sense of, am I on the right track? Anatomical and behavioral adaptations let them move better on land and water. Great. Anatomicals, there's something about their physical body. Behavioral, there's something about the way they act that make them really efficient in their biome of a tropical, mudflatty, mangrove forest intertidal zone. These fish use their fins to move around in skips. This gives them the name mud skipper. Awesome. So then as I scroll down, I think, oh, okay, I do see a bunch of information here, and it looks like some good things, right? Like, so I go back up, and Wikipedia, I know it gets a bad rap, but it is a good place to start. And then I notice NCBI, NHI.gov. So this is the National Institute of Health, which is kind of weird that they're doing something, but I wonder, so mudskippers and their genetic adaptations to amphibious life, this looks good, y'all. And it's a .gov, which makes me want to think it's a more reliable source than a .com. This right here, .edu. Now you have to know that Google memorizes and studies your patterns. My Google searching pattern in life is science. So my Google's going to pick up things that maybe your Google doesn't. So you can just continue to keep searching. I'm going to search on .gov. I'm going to go to this website, and I'm going to go, ooh, it's a scientific paper. And scientific papers can often be hard to read. The first thing I do is simple summary. They're an interesting group of Google-eyed amphibious fish that can live on both land and water. They are a useful model for obtaining insights into the genetic mechanisms underlying the terrestrial adaptations of amphibious fish. These guys became an important area of study because, through evolution, all life started single-celled, then we got multicellular, and we were in the water, and then vertebrates in the water, fish and sharks, and then life came on land. Here is an organism, this mud skipper, that has this adaptation between land and water. So it becomes really interesting and curious to see how those structures, those behaviors, those body parts help it survive in and out of water. So as I look through here, I'm going to look through and start seeing that there is, there's different pictures of my mud skippers depending on where in the zone it is. If it's on the mud flat, my mud skipper looks more like my traditional mud skipper because I'm studying the mud flat one. And then there's different species of mud skipper that look different and have different structures depending on where they are in the depth of water in the tidal zone. So notice how I haven't written down anything. I haven't decided on anything yet. I'm doing research. This is so fun for me. I love it. And I understand that you might not love it, but I want you to practice because so much of just in life is getting online and doing research. And it doesn't necessarily just end at school. So as I scroll through this, this is awesome. And you know how I feel about pictures. And so when I look at this, I see, okay, I've got my mud skipper, and this is my typical mud skipper, the mud skipper I love. And I see that their eye has been adapted so they're googly popped out that they can see all around them. Aerial vision. That's going to be important to protect myself from predators. If I have aerial vision, I can see in my surroundings. That is an adaptation. That is different than if my eyeballs were totally on the side like fish are, frogs' eyeballs. And so this mud skipper is an amphibious fish. It is not related to the frog per se. It is not in the group of organisms called amphibians. This is a fish. So this is a fish with super funny googly eyes that helps it see out of water where it lives. The word olfaction, and so some of this is just experience with studying science, and some of this is like go ahead and Google search it to see. So I know what olfaction means, but let me Google search it to practice olfaction. And you see olfactory nerve, olfaction, and comes up the action of smelling. Your olfaction is how you take in your surroundings with scent. Their olfaction system, and these codes underneath are genes and codes that the scientists use in their scientific paper, and it's going to be way above my head to understand what they mean, and it doesn't matter. But I know now that there's something about the way that mudskippers can smell that helps them survive in their environment. That's a place for me to research. Obviously, what's weird with mudskippers is they have gills, and gills are processes for getting oxygen out of the liquid, and they spend a lot of time on land. So there is kind of that fine line between, what is that adaptation and how do the gills work and how do they go? So can research that. It also says ammonium tolerance, and ammonium, this is NH3. Remember, we made NH3 molecules, the nitrogen and the three hydrogens, and it can be pretty toxic. So their gills, it seems like, have adapted a strategy for dealing with ammonium in that environment. The pectoral fins, and I found this really cool video where their pectoral fins are different than fishes. They kind of have a platform. Pectoral, that's your chest muscles. Like guys are gonna or girls are gonna strengthen their pecs. Their pectoral fins help them walk on land. So they move around really well because of these pectoral fins and terrestrial locomotion, terrestrial land locomotion. Something about their liver, again with the ammonia. So I wonder if this ammonia is in the environment of these mudflats, which totally makes sense with some of the toxic things in mudflats. And you know how they smell delicious, like sulfur and rotten eggs. So their liver must have adapted a strategy to clean that out. And remember, organisms that are around water a lot, their liver works. Your liver's working real hard too. And then they have antibacterial peptides. Peptides are proteins. They have these antibacterial proteins on their skin. That's cool. One of the things that makes sharks really cool is their skin. Bacteria doesn't grow on it for some reason. So they're using a lot of research on shark skin to figure out maybe strategies and ways to create substances that don't grow bacteria, like ventilators and things in hospitals. And, it's really hard, especially in North Carolina where it's so humid. Mold and stuff is everywhere because it's really easy to grow on. This image, and I'm kind of frustrated and not frustrated, but I'm kind of sorry that I found it so fast. But you can see I've already been searching this. This image I decided to go ahead and put in my slideshow. Next to my image, I've decided I'm going to continue doing research on eyeballs seeing, the olfaction, the vomeral nasal smelling, breathing. I want to know more about the adaptations of the breathing, walking, how they process toxins, and their immunity. I'm going to focus on that part of the physiological ecology of the mudskipper, and I'm going to see how do their eyes help them survive in the environment. So what I can do is now, I did go to Wikipedia to get started too, because it's a great place to start. And you can move on from there. I searched mudskipper adaptations. This came up. And with mudskipper, look at here, adaptations, great. This is exactly what I want. Mudskippers are different from their relatives. There's gobies, and gobies are fish. But because mudskippers can live on both land and water, that is a cool adaptation. So what about the mudskipper's body structure or behavior allows it to live on land? That's what you're trying to find out. So the anatomical and behavioral adaptations let them move better in land and water. These fish use their fins to move around in skips, mudskipper, and they can also flip their strong body to jump 2 feet into the air. We had some jumping videos for mating behaviors, for territorial behaviors, but I wonder if there's also maybe some predation reactions. Like if there's a predator coming, then I can jump out of the way. So I have so much to learn, and this might take me 40 minutes. And that's what I'm going to do today. So I apologize for this being longer than I anticipated it to be, but you know how I can get going, how I love talking. So what I think I'm going to do is make this a 2-day project, because this slide is going to be awesome, and it's going to be the cool, amazing things like the cheetah. There's something about the black stripes under the cheetah's eyes. There's something about the claws on the cheetah. That frog, William, come on. That adaptation of holding your babies in your stomach so that they can grow from eggs to tadpoles to adult frogs. There's got to be a reason for that. The lily pad with that flower that changes color. Man, oh man, Lila, that one's awesome. So the way that the mushrooms, the spores, all of that. Why spores? Why not egg and sperm? Why bacteria? Why yeast? I really want you to get into this and love this as much as I do. So here's your assignment. Today, at the end of the day, in your Google Slides, you are going to at least get a picture or something started with words. Like if you turn this at the end of the day, you're good. Tomorrow, it'll be complete. At least one slide, possibly two. Your updated table of contents all the way back to the beginning. Slide 15. It's okay if your slides are like if you had a couple of extra slides. You shouldn't have any less slides, but if you had an extra slide, it's okay if yours is 16, but mine is 15 for physiological ecology. And so scrolling through here, sorry, it's so fast. This is not part of the slides. I just had this to teach you. This is what I want at the end of the day, at least limited. If you want to do it all today and then you have tomorrow off, totally fine. But if not, then you have a couple of things to work on for the next 2 days. I'm super excited to see what you come up with. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.